Hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Saturday 3:30 p.m. demo at the Miniatures Around the World online crop. I'm just waiting a moment for my video to start. Fingers crossed. I know for a lot of you it takes a minute for everything to come in. And oh yes, we're a little crooked, a little crooked. Let me see. We're up on that side, so we need to adjust a little bit. Oh, it's a little wonky there too. Okay, we're going to move the mat. We're going to make it work. There we go. We're still a little wonky at the bottom, but that's just the angle of the camera today. It's decided to go all willy-nilly. Hey, Heather. Nice to see you're watching. Good afternoon. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can just say replay or make a comment. I love to hear your comments as we work through our projects. So we're going to be looking at one of the collections in this catalog. We're going to be looking at Lily Pond Lane right here. And I think this is an adorable collection. It's kind of outside my color zone. There's a lot of orange in this, which is the peach pie. So that's a little bit different for me. I don't gravitate towards oranges, but I think that's all right. Sometimes we have to try things that are outside of our normal range, and then maybe we'll find something else that we like, right? You never know. So, but I really love the stamp set and all the cute little duckies. So if you clicked in and saw the title when you came in, we're calling this Quackers. And maybe that's a good description of me. Just a little Quackers. So we're going to be using the Lily Pond Lane, but we're going to be doing some scrapbooking with it. And even though it's a 6x6 collection, you can absolutely scrapbook with that. Sometimes you need to be a little bit creative. If you think back to, using items that were meant for pocket scrapbooking, little 4x6 cards and 3x4 cards, I used to do a lot of scrapbooking using those to create full 12x12 layouts. And so it's the same thing. You just have to be creative with what you do. I'm going to start out with base cardstock. This is Balmy Blue. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Again, new colors. It's all new. But this is the Stampin' Up! Balmy Blue. I'm going to add some adhesive on here so it doesn't shift around too much while we're creating. And stick it down. You may have noticed on my mat that I don't have the host code listed. There is a host code. I put up a post in the event. So if you're looking at putting an order in with Stampin' Up! And you would like to order through me, by all means, go ahead. And that host code, if you put in an order that's less than $200 Canadian, you use the host code, and that will help me purchase things for prizes for the crops. And if your order is above $200 Canadian, then it will prompt you to add rewards. It will tell you how many rewards you have earned, and you have to use them right away while you're working on your order. So just keep that in mind. So I've posted the host code, and let's get started. We have our Balmy Blue 12x12, and we're going to come in with some of the patterned paper from the Lily Pond Lane. I'm just trying to grab it. My hand won't grab it. There we go. And the Lily Pond Lane, there was one piece of pattern paper. I should put it, it was probably like this, or like this, or like this. Let's see, how was it? One way or another. It was a 6x6. So I cut it in half. So I have two 3-inch strips, but then I cut one of them a little bit smaller. So this one is the 6 inches, and this one is 5.5. So I'm just going to attach them to my page, have them join where they join, and then have my 1/2-inch gap over here. Okay? So I've got my 3-inch by 6-inch strip. I love the gray pebbly look on the back of this, but the cattails were calling to me today. The photos that I'm going to use, I was mentioning to the ladies who were crafting during Craft and Chat today, the photos I was printing off are photos from a trip that my kids and I and my dad took to the Peterborough Lift Locks. And my mom had made a delicious lunch for us. And so we sat at a picnic table by the lift locks and ate our delicious lunch. The kids were impressed because my mom made a sandwich out of an entire round loaf of bread. Like, she cut it in half, made the sandwich. So it was a big loaf of bread, and then she cut it in wedges like a pie. So they were all over that. They thought that was the coolest thing ever. So we were sitting eating our lunch, and of course there were some duckies in the canal, the Trent River that flows through there, and they had to come and see what we were doing at the picnic table because they are very used to people having picnics along the canal, and they have to come and visit and see if they can get any little treats. And so they were coming like right underneath the table and under the benches of the picnic table, and Julia was just little then. She was a little bit concerned about the duckies crawling under the bench. So I actually have pictures, I'm not using them today, where she's like got her feet up on the bench. You know, she's kind of pulled her feet up and she's you know, eyeing them very suspiciously, the duckies. But I think they did get a few crumbs because Julia had a tendency to drop crumbs at that age. So they were willing to hang around. Hey, Mary, nice to see you're watching. And hello, Mom. Mom's here too. So I've got this strip going on, and then I pulled out another piece of the pattern paper, and you probably remember the fishies that we used the other day, the koi fish that we created when we did our floating fish center step card. And so the back side of that is the peach pie, that lovely orange color that's not my go-to color, but it looks so nice with all these cattails. And so I have taken 2 sheets of this and cut it at 3 3/4 inches. So I needed 2 sheets to get the height that I wanted. And so we're going to go ahead and stick these down onto our sheet. And because we've cut them, we can divide them across this, and it looks like we've used a much larger piece of paper than a 6x6. And of course, don't worry about the little bits that are left over, because we can make some cards or embellish another layout with those. I'm going to just line up my ruler at 1/2 inch here because I have to go across this pattern paper. I want to make sure that my 2 pieces of the peach pie pattern line up and don't go all crazy, because that will confuse the eye. We want the eye to assume that we used a larger piece of paper, even though we're using a smaller piece of paper. So we'll go ahead and we'll stick that down 1/2 inch in and right up against the cattails, just like that, creating a nice base for our photos that are going to go on next. And so let me see, I have this picture of Justin, much younger Justin, and he was taking a photo of the ducks. He had his little camera with him, and so this duck was coming right up to him, like he was like, "Are you giving me a treat or what?" So this has been cut to a weird size because I wanted it to fit the way I wanted it to fit. So it's about 3.5 by 5. And so that's going to go on there, around about there. We'll kind of straighten it up here in a minute. Then, of course, we got a few close-ups of some of the ducks. And I thought these were really pretty ducks. And you'll notice there's a little bit of blue here. So that's going to come into play. I did pick the balmy blue in the background because it was very much like the blue in Justin's t-shirt. He was wearing his Homestead Huskies elementary school t-shirt that day. And so I thought that could tie in with the blue, because there's not really any sky in any of these photos. And so I thought the blue would be nice to kind of denote that it was a sunny day. So we've got our little ducky here. And because this is a close-up, I'm going to put it down at the bottom, because then we have a picture that's a little bit farther away. I had to use my zoom to get this, of some of the ducks swimming out in the canal. And so I kind of like this mix of photos. I have lots of other photos that were taken this day, but I kind of like this mix of photos. I think they look good together. The only thing I wish is that this guy wasn't like wandering away here, but that's okay. We still have the impression that there's about 5 ducks, which is an odd number, and that keeps us happy. I also kind of like that we've got one duck moving towards Justin, and then we've got these ducks that are swimming. It's kind of like there's a little trail of ducks happening on our page. I'm not going to mat my photos. I thought about it. I even was thinking of using black to mat my photos, but I think I'm just going to leave them the way they are, because each of the photos has mostly a solid edge, if you know what that means. So like this photo, the edge around the photo, it's all the same other than this one duck. That's the anomaly. The edge of the photo is all consistent, and it's different from the background. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 6-inch line here. I could even use my ruler. I could. I'm going to use my 6-inch line, because we centered this paper on the 6-inch line, to line up my photo, and I'm going to go just a little bit above so that we leave a little gap, but hopefully keep it straight. So you can see that as when I put that down, because we've got that consistent edge, the photo mat wouldn't make too huge of a difference. I mean, it would make a difference, but I think it's okay the way it is. And then this one has green going all the way around the photo. It's not really broken up by anything. So again, that's one way that you can kind of help decide whether you need to mat or not to mat. That is the question. I also like that our close-up duck is looking towards the center of the page instead of looking out the other way. So we're going to line it up with our first photo like that, leaving a little gap so we can see that pattern paper going all the way across. And then our last photo, there's a little bit of a trick to this last one. Because we have a join here in our pattern paper, we're going to maintain about the same size of gap as we have here. And by doing that, we should be able to hide that seam in the paper. Now, let me see. I said this was just a little bit more than 5. So that's 2.5, which would put us about there, plus a little bit. So I'm going to use my ruler to help me try and keep this straight-ish and centered, because I find, because I'm over here, I'm not looking from above. Phew, bless me. I'm not looking from above, so I find sometimes centering something is a little bit difficult. When you're not looking from above, you're looking at an angle, it gets a little wonky. So the ruler helps for that. All right, now we need to do some embellishing. And for my embellishing, I have the Charming Duck Pond stamp set. Let me just bring this in here so you can see. And there are a couple large ducks, a little duck. There's some of these lovely cattails and the tops for them. There's frogs and lily pads. And even when I was looking at the stamp set, you know, I kind of see that, but I'm not really paying attention to these little things. So then when I was on the inside here looking, I see these stamps that look like dog bones or something, which if it was like Halloween, I don't know if you can see that because they're so clear. If it was Halloween, you could flip those over and stamp them, and they'd look like weird bones. Just a FYI on that one. But I couldn't figure out, I'm like, what are those? Is that like a weird thing? And then I realized it's the feet and the beaks for the ducks, but they've been connected, right? So you get the placement right. I'm like, so smart, but so you're not thinking about it. But anyway, I'm not so smart. The idea is smart. So we've got some ducks. We've got some little bulrushes, or cattails. So I'm just going to grab, trying to move things around here, because I forgot to grab some paper for stamping on. But I have a drawer here that's just chock full of paper for stamping on. So let me just grab some paper, and I'm going to move my layout out of the way for a minute so we have more room to work. And I've already loaded up a couple of ducks onto this block. And yes, you can stamp them at the same time. So we're just going to ink this up. I've got the Tuxedo black of the Memento ink for this. And we can go ahead and just stamp them out like that. Looking good. Then we can use some of the extra stamps. Just like they have the feet and the legs, they also have parts of the body that you can stamp and ink. So I've got with me, let me see. This is the one that's this duck right here. And what I'm going to stamp this one with is Basic Gray, which is a dark gray. And let me see if I can, there's two ways of doing this. This one works really well. Pops it open like that. Otherwise, you can use the heel of your hand to push down on the opposite end. That's the trick I've learned. So we're going to ink this up. I have to keep reminding myself it's foam. It inks differently. And then we're going to line it up as best I can without having my head in the right spot with our duck and see if we're successful. Oh, look at that. Pretty good. So it adds some nice color onto our duck. And you could do that with any color. And there's also one for the other one. Now, I'm not going to do both of them because I have already stamped and gotten ready a couple ducks ahead of time. So you don't have to see the whole process from beginning to end. But we've got now our two ducks stamped. We've got one with the Basic Gray added on. And then I'm going to come in with the light light gray Granite. And I'm just going to color, sorry, I got a large piece of paper here. I'm going to color in some of the rest of the body because I want to have some color there. Because these ducks were kind of grayish brownish. And I'm just going to color that all in there like that. And for the beak and the feet, I have light pumpkin pie that we're going to use first. I should have this kind of in the middle so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to color in with the light pumpkin pie. I don't have the peach pie, which is actually the color. At least I don't think I do. You never know. Maybe I do and I just didn't look hard enough. I have, I just got a whole bunch of these yesterday. They got delivered. So I have to kind of pay attention to what colors I have now. And this is the dark. So I'm going to just add a little bit of the dark along the bottom of the beak, under the body, on the legs, and a little shadow there. Because kind of that Basic Gray on there already gave a shadow. And then if you noticed in my photo that these little duckies actually had a blue section. I don't know if you can see it well enough. It's a really bright blue. But of course, with the cameras and the lights and everything, it's coming through pretty dark. But it's a bright blue. And so I'm going to use the light blueberry Bushel to color in just a little bit of blue on the wing. Just like that. Just so it matches the duckies that I have on my layout. That's the wonderful thing about stamping out your own duckies. You could fussy cut duckies from the paper collection, but they're not the colors I was looking for, and so we customized. Now, there are dies available for this stamp set. I did not purchase the dies, so I'm going to get to have the fun of fussy cutting my duckies. And we're just going to go around. We're going to leave a halo of white all the way around our duck. We're going to pivot the paper as we go. And when we get too much excess paper, we can just snip to the edge and then continue on all the way around. Duckies are actually a good shape to learn to do fussy cutting with because there's just little slopey parts. It's nice and curvy, and you get lots of practice of going in and out, but it doesn't take too long because they're not a huge object. So we've got some duckies, but then we also want to stamp out some of the cattails. So I've got the stamp here. Let me see. Where's my stamp? There we go. I've got the stamp that has the stems, and I'm going to use my little Stampin' spot here, the Granny Apple Green. I don't yet have a big one, but Samantha kindly shared some of her Stampin' spots with me at the retreat. Thank you, Samantha. So I'm going to stamp out my Granny Apple Green because that's the coordinating color for this Lily Pond Lane collection. And then there's also the bit that has the top of the cattails. And for that, I'm going to use Cajun Craze, which is not, it's not a color in this collection, but I think it has sort of that feel of brownie, orangey goodness that you would see in a cattail. So there's two ways you can open these, or at least two I know of. You can pop it up with your thumb on the end, which is sometimes difficult, or you can take the heel of your hand, push down on the opposite end, and it'll pop up. I've also added some wax to the slidey bit so it moves nice. And then we're just going to ink this up, but we're going to stamp off. Stamp. And then we're going to come over to our image and do the second generation stamping. So we've stamped off and then we've stamped again. And that will give us a lighter color than the Cajun Craze full strength. I'll just lift that up so you can see the difference. It's pretty noticeable. So that's the full strength, and we stamped off, and then we stamped again onto our little cattails. So of course we can go ahead and cut those out. Are you like me? Do you have pieces of white cardstock in a drawer or in a bin that have random stamping, random marker, random pieces cut out because you know you're just going to stamp more things? So you just put it back in the bin. I don't know. Is anybody else like me? I can't be the only one. So let's go ahead. We'll trim this one out. Some of the cattails in that pattern paper are actually pretty peacock color too. So they're a little darker, a little bluish, and that's a gorgeous color. But I decided to stick with the other color, the lighter, the Granny Apple Green. And we're just going to go in and out as much as we want around the cattails. I'm not going to do the inside bits. Sometimes I do take my precision blade and get right to town with inside these little bits here. But I'm not going to do it on my layout. I don't think it's necessary for this one. But you might see me do it on a card. Just depends on what's going on, I guess. And then we're just going to keep going all the way around. Some of these are straight lines. Some of them are curved lines. Let's cut off to the edge. We don't want to accidentally cut off the tips of those cattails. There we go. All the way, almost done. Around, one more. How many of you like watching somebody fussy cut? Just so you know, I did some of these ahead of time, so you only had to watch me do one. I was thinking about the people who don't like to watch fussy cutting. They get the heebie-jeebies when fussy cut happens. So let's go ahead, bring back in our layout and stick that back down. So now we have our fun little pieces that we have created. We've got a few of them, and we can add them to our layout. Let me see. Just kind of trying to decide how I want them. We've got some left-facing ducks and some right-facing ducks and another ducky up here. I think that's kind of cute. What do you think? We're liking where those are at. I think this little ducky can handle being on his own. I'm going to leave this space available for some journaling, and I think I might use some dimensionals to give a little bit of lift to my little duckies and things. So let me just grab that. Let's turn this over and add a couple dimensionals there and there. Maybe one there. Just checking to see if anybody's saying anything in the comments. Because I wasn't paying attention for a while I was fussy cutting. I'm just trying to decide. I think I'll put that one down there instead of up higher. And then let's also pop this guy up. He's just chilling over here by himself. Oop, the backing came along. Add some. These are the mini dimensionals, so they're a little bit smaller footprint, which is good when you've got little bits. We're talking about miniatures all this weekend during the crop. And so I find a lot of times when you fussy cut and do things with stamped images of like critters and things, you get that impression of miniatures, right? Especially if you're putting them on a card and you're creating a little scene. You're causing a scene. It very much gives you the idea of things in miniature. What is it about miniatures that is just so cute? I don't know what it is. Like you see a miniature pony, and it's the cutest. You know, those little cats that never get bigger than a teacup, or the teacup doggies, and everybody's just like, oh, they're so cute. And it's the same when you see, you know, little intricate things in a dollhouse, or you know, at a miniature village, or model trains. It's just so interesting. You could look at big trains and find them interesting, but the number of people who find big trains as interesting as little trains is probably quite different, you know? There's probably a lot of people that would never go and stand outside the rail yard and watch trains move around. But you put them in front of miniature trains and you can watch those things for hours. So there's our other little ducky. And you'll notice this one I colored the same. I stamped with the basic gray and then colored with the smoky granite, dark gray granite. And then, of course, the blueberry bushel. But this one, I actually did do the layer of stamping, but I stamped it in gray granite, and then I colored with gray granite. So there's a little bit here where you can see it's a slight bit darker from the ink, but the, what am I trying to say? But the marker itself is pretty much exactly the same color as the ink. So it didn't give as much contrast, but that's okay. And then, of course, I added in the blue. Now, I'm pretty sure that the girls didn't have the blue. Quite often with ducks, it's the boys that have the good colorations on them that look exciting. And the girls, not so much. Because the girls are trying to camouflage because they're protecting their nest. And the boys are trying to look flashy and impress the girls. That's my theory. So that's why they have the colors. Maybe they're just trying to be the distraction to lure, you know, predators away from the nest. So they have the flashy colors so they can lure them away. But I think it's just so they can impress the ladies. What do you think? I'm going to come back in with the Memento to stamp my title. And I decided that my title was going to be the word quack. We're not saying that Justin's a quack. We're saying that the ducks were going quack. And so I'm just going to make sure this is just from my stash. An old stamp set from my stash. And you know what? You use what you have, and you want to use the things that you have in your stash, because what else are you going to do with them? I'm going to add this right up here. I don't even know if it's straight because I'm looking at it at such a huge angle. We're going to hope for the best. But if it's wonky, we'll say we did it wonky on purpose. I was actually debating doing like a whole bunch of quacks. Like quack, 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 all down the side. But I decided that would be too busy. I thought about it, and then I decided no. Keep it simple. And I think it looks lovely like that now. I'm just trying to see. I have the Dappled Dots, I believe they're called. It's stuck on my adhesive. 1 second. I have to rescue my hand. The Dappled Dots, yes. These coordinate with this Lily Pond Lane collection. So I'm just going to pull these out and see if we want to add any of these to our layout. I'm going to use my take your pick tool. And I'm thinking actually maybe the brownish ones that I haven't used, because I think those look nice with the ducks. So let's add a few of these. We've got this guy that's kind of hanging out over here by himself, as Julia used to say when she was little, just hanging out by himself. And so we could add a couple there, maybe even one more, like that. We won't put it too close. We don't want it to look like the ducky has had to use the bathroom. Julia told me one time when she was much younger and I was putting dots around some kind of animal that I put it in a weird spot and it looked like the animal had to use the bathroom. So we're not doing that. I have learned my lesson. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. She taught me not to do that. So let's add another one here. Maybe one there. And a couple over here in amongst the cattails, like so. And then how about up here by our title? Just add a couple of these. There we go. And one more. One more. Maybe right there. Quack. Quack. I like that. So I've got some space for journaling. And we started out with our balmy blue base page. We added in that cut apart strip. Took our 6x6, cut it right in half, made a strip to go across, trimmed off a little 1/2 inch there for a bit of styling. Then, of course, we used 2 sheets of 6x6 to cut these 3 3/4 inch strips to give a nice little vertical line on our layout. Adding in our photos, covering up that seam between the two, we stamped out our cattails without using any black ink. We just went ahead and used the colors we wanted. Then, of course, stamping out our little duckies and using those extra stamps that give you the extra color on there. A little bit of marker, title from our stash, and then some Dappled Dots. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that layout come together and feel inspired to create something of your own, maybe even using a 6x6 piece of DSP. Or this is a great way to use scraps. If you've got scrappy bits left over, you can totally make it work. And you just got to be a little bit thoughtful and creative to figure that out sometimes. I hope you have a great afternoon. If you do make a layout like this, take a photo and pop it in the comments so we can all see it and be inspired. And we will be back at 7 o'clock this evening for Chat and Craft. Hope to see you then. All right, toodaloo.